Hey, what's up guys? I'm BTC. Balance is a critical aspect of any multiplayer game, and Overwatch has definitely had its share of problems with it. So today I want to talk a little bit about Hero Balance, but more so I want to discuss who exactly is Blizzard trying to balance this game for. This is going to be one of my longer discussion videos, but bear with me because it's an incredibly important topic and something that a lot of people simply don't understand well enough. Let me give you a quick example. I have two groups of players. On the left side, I have players from Bronze, Silver, Gold, and Platinum. On the right side, I have players from Diamond, Master, Grandmaster, and the top 500. I ask both groups the same question. What do you think about the heroes Torbjorn, Symmetra, and Bastion? Most of the players from the group on the left are going to say that those characters are strong or maybe even overpowered. However, most of the players from the group on the right are going to say that those heroes are weak, situational, not viable, or just plain worthless. These two groups have completely opposite feelings about the same heroes. Are these heroes too strong or are they too weak? Which group is right? The answer is both of them. And that is the problem. A lot of times when I make my videos, I talk about how certain changes will affect high skill players differently from how it will affect medium and low skill players. This is because while most people fall under the medium skill, many are still really interested in seeing and understanding high-level competitive play. It's important to understand that while a balance change may have little to no impact on the average player, it might have a huge impact on the high-skill player, or vice versa. So you might be asking, well, why does any of that even matter? After all, most of the people in Overwatch are going to be in that average, medium skill bracket. Shouldn't Blizzard just try to balance the game for them? Why bother trying to balance the game for a very small number of high-skill players? Well, you see, Blizzard desperately wants Overwatch to be a premier esport. In fact, Blizzard is trying to do something that's never been done before. They're trying to create a professional league that functions just like the NFL, the NBA, NHL, etc., etc. This is a massive undertaking that's going to require not only a huge amount of effort, but millions and millions of dollars. That's no small thing. A thriving esports scene is required for games like this to have long-lasting popularity. Now you might be thinking, is it even possible to balance a game with this many characters? And the answer to that is most definitely yes. There are other games with a lot more characters that are much better balanced than Overwatch. For example, Dota 2 currently has 112 heroes, 5 times as many as Overwatch, and yet Dota 2 is significantly better balanced. In fairness, Dota 2 has been out for a lot longer, but the sheer number of characters makes up for that. In fact, Dota 2 is so well balanced, during the last Dota International, which is an annual tournament with some of the biggest prize pools in esports history, in fact, the last one had a prize pool of almost $21 million. So during that massive tournament with the largest prize pool in history, out of the, I believe it was 110 characters that were available, only 5 of them were not picked. That is unbelievably well balanced. If a game that has over 110 characters can be that well balanced, then there's no reason why Overwatch can't be balanced as well. Unfortunately, one of the biggest problems in Overwatch is that it has a very low skill ceiling. This means the game is much more casual friendly and not terribly difficult to master. Really, the only thing that separates the average player from the top tier is some better positioning and improved accuracy. The game simply doesn't have complicated or difficult to master tactics. You can't balance a game like this for both high skill and low skill players at the same time. It just doesn't work. Certain abilities and character types that are really powerful for low skill players are often complete garbage for high skill players. The best example of this, and I'm sure some of you have figured it out already, is going to be Torbjorn. He's very strong for low skill players who are going to have bad accuracy, and that's because the turret will automatically track and shoot targets. It's doing something that the player can't. Now, for higher skill players, they don't need that because they have very good accuracy, and also they're very easily able to deal with a stationary target like a turret. So, for Torbjorn, he can be very strong for the lower skill brackets, but almost worthless for the higher skill brackets. So how can you balance a character like that for both low and high skill players? If they buff the character to a place where it's good enough for the high skill players, then it will be unbelievably powerful and just sheer game breaking for the low skill players. I mean, every single match with the low skill players would absolutely have to have a Torbjorn in it, if they buffed it at all. On the other hand, you can take a character like Genji that can be absolutely devastating in the hands of a high skill player, but very weak in the hands of a low skill player who simply doesn't have the ability to use the hero at its full potential. So who exactly is Blizzard trying to balance the game for? Is it the low skill players? The medium skill? The high skill? The answer is they're trying to balance it for everyone at the same time, and it's not going to work, and the game is going to suffer because of it. The esport tournament scene will also be really stale and redundant with the same characters over and over. Most competitive esport games are balanced based on the higher skill players, which causes them to have an exciting and ever-changing tournament play. When a certain strategy becomes the standard or the meta way of playing, new strategies will be developed to counter that. Unfortunately, Overwatch simply doesn't have that. It's always the same characters over and over because those heroes simply outperform all the others. The only thing the players are waiting for is Blizzard to make some sort of balance tweak, which will then create a new flavor of the month strategy. For a game like Overwatch, a strong presence in esports is necessary in order to continue driving interest for the game year after year. Look at some of the other ones that have been around for a very long time. League of Legends, Dota 2, CSGO, even Smash Brothers. They have big competitive scenes, and that continues driving the game year after year after year. So let's see how interesting the hero selection currently is. For recent tournaments, Ana, Reinhardt, Lucio, and Diva have enjoyed a pick rate of between 80 to 90%, Zarya's at 71%, Roadhog at 61%, Tracer, Soldier 76, and Genji are less common. Tracer's at 27%, Soldier's at 22%, and Genji's at 15%. Now, what about all of the rest? Well, here they are. A total of 14 heroes with a pick rate of 10% or less. 4 of them are only at 1%, and both Junkrat and Bastion were picked exactly 0 times. With more than half the roster seeing almost no playtime, the esports scene for Overwatch is going to be really stale, really redundant, and really boring. This is not good for a potential multi-million-dollar esport league that Blizzard wants to create. Now, you do have to take into consideration the fact that the standard lineup or the meta of the game will change from time to time. This is almost always the result of balance changes Blizzard makes. That means that some of the characters who are picked often might all of a sudden not get picked at all, or vice versa. They may never see the light of day, and all of a sudden they're in every single game. The reason why this sort of thing happens is because in Overwatch, at any given time, there is one specific group of characters that are always better than their counterparts. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a result of poor game balance. If the support characters were actually balanced, even remotely, then you would see a more even distribution among the ones that get picked. I mean, come on, you can't deny there's a problem when 2 of the healers are picked more than 80% of the time, and the other 2 are barely picked at all. And the same thing can be said for the damage-dealing characters as well. And it gets worse. In addition to that, ever since the game was released, We've seen a variety of characters that get cycled in and out of tournament popularity, but there have always been some that are very rarely, if ever, seen at all. Bastion, Torbjorn, and Junkrat, just to name a few. These are characters that have been balanced specifically for the lower skill players so that they're not game-breakingly powerful at that bracket. But as a result, they're much too weak to see regular use in tournaments. If you do see those characters, it's very rare, and oftentimes it's part of some sort of gimmicky surprise strategy. A major step towards a possible solution for the hero balance problem would be to raise the skill ceiling of the game. As it is right now, Overwatch is fairly simple to play. There aren't that many tricks to master. There are some simple things like animation canceling, but even that was nerfed. Other stuff like ledge dashing was removed entirely. Unfortunately, Blizzard seems intent on keeping the skill ceiling of Overwatch very low, which is the opposite of what they should be doing. So here's a quick little example of something very simple that they could do to increase the skill ceiling of the game, which would better help balance it for both low and high skill players. Let's take a look at the character McCree. He can do a lot of damage, but it requires him to be accurate. So something Blizzard could do is give him a passive ability that increases the amount of damage he does whenever he lands a headshot. This could be a very short duration buff, maybe it only lasts for a few seconds. What Blizzard could do is they could balance McCree for the average player around his base stats. His base damage, health, ultimate charge rate, all that stuff. But then they could further balance the character for higher skill players by using that passive ability. The reason why this would work is because the average player is simply not going to hit a lot of headshots. It's going to be a fairly rare thing for an average McCree to get that buff. But the higher skill players are going to land a lot more headshots, meaning they would have that extra damage buff active a lot more often. This sort of thing would give Blizzard two different groups of stats that they can then use to balance the character. Because one of those groups, in this case that passive ability, is really only going to affect the high skill players, you can specifically use that to make the character viable at the higher skill brackets. Now, that was just an example, and maybe that wouldn't be the best change for McCree, but I think you get the idea. Anything that requires a lot of accuracy or skill is the sort of thing that you could use as that secondary balance option. I would really like to see this game much better balanced. And I don't think anyone enjoys watching a tournament where it's the same 6 or 7 characters over and over and over, with half or more of the roster pretty much completely ignored. Anyways, these are just some ideas. Let me know what you think. Give me some feedback in the comment section below. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe. There's lots more Overwatch on the channel. Remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.